is Cree, LaRance. I'm Tewa, Hopi, and Navajo. Today I will be demonstrating how to make a triangle wire bracelet, stamp bracelet, for the artists and residencies for the Bosque Redondo Historic Site. I've been doing silversmithing for about 10 years now. This technique that I'm going to be doing today is called stamp work. And essentially what it is you got these steel stamps and you use a hammer to leave an impression on the silver. And from there you do the silversmithing to create art. It is most commonly used with the Navajo Nation. Stamp work has been around for a long time. It was originally brought over by the Spanish, and the Spanish taught the Navajos how to do stamp work. So today I'm gonna do a real simple one with more, traditional designs. Keep it simple and easy so I can show how to do it. What you'll need is a nice hammer. You need a hammer anywhere from 2.5 pounds to 5 pounds is what I like to use today. I'll be using a 5-pound hammer. You're gonna need your silver, of course, a small jeweler's ruler, your stamps, a Sharpie, a fine point Sharpie, and of course you're gonna wanna use safety precautions. So you're gonna have earbuds and head muffs, so earmuffs. So what we're gonna do first is we're gonna measure our piece of silver. What this is triangle silver, and it's solid sterling silver, triangle shaped. So what we're gonna do right now, I got this at 5.5 inches. So we're gonna figure out our parameters, so that way when we're stamping, we know where we're gonna lay our stamps and where our center point is and on all that. So like I said, this is about 5.5. So we'll measure 2 3/4 to find the center point. So that lets me know where my center point is. And when you buy your silver from a jeweler company or a jewelry supplier, usually it'll come dead soft. So you want your silver nice and soft, so that way it's easier to leave the impression into the silver. Once you start working the silver molecules will harden up and it'll be harder to work the silver. So at that point, we'll do what's called annealing, where we essentially heat up the silver to loosen up the molecules and soften the silver. But right now, since this is a fresh piece of silver, it's dead soft, so it'll be nice and soft for the stamp. So the stamp I'm using today is a traditional style stamp. It's common with old traditional jewelry. So that's what we'll be using today. And when you do your stamping, it's all up to, the nice thing about stamping is it's all up to the artist to use the design, the stamp design, to be creative as possible. So you can do it in repetitions, different angles, upside down, use them to conjoin. So that's the nice thing about stamps, is it really is up to the artist. So what I'm gonna do here, I got my middle point. So what I'll do is, well, first let me put on my safety gear. Get your headphones, your earphones. Then I'll do a double one. So this is to protect your hearing, because over years, damage can be done to your hearing. So first I'm gonna use my main stamp, and I'm gonna use it right on the middle point. So what I do is I find where I'm gonna lay my stamp, and I hold it flush against the silver. Another thing that I forgot, this is a triangle wire block. This is essential for triangle stamps specifically. So if the silver is flat, then you need a stamping block, which is just a flat block where you can hit your designs, because you need a hard surface on the back. So usually steel blocks, they have special made plates that you can use for stamping. But for this triangle wire, you specifically need a triangle one. So we're gonna lay it in there, and we're gonna put our stamp where we want it stamped. Now, one thing about stamping is you want to get that first good blow solid, so it leaves an impression. So it could be tricky. So what you do is you really hold it, and I use my dominant hand. I'm right-handed, so I use my dominant hand to wield the hammer, and then use my left non-dominant hand to hold the stamp in place. The first thing, on that very first strike, it's important to get a nice, thick, good hit in. What I'll do is I'll leave my first impression, and then you could go in and kind of work the stamp a little bit. And the nice thing, once you get that first impression, it's nice because you can always reline the stamp back up and go deeper. So that's what I'll do. I got my first initial impression, and now I'll just go over it. And what I like to do is kind of angle the stamp so you can get it nice and deep in different areas. So as you can see, we got our first stamp there. So now what I'm going to do is use a circle stamp and put a circle on either side of it just to give it a little more design element. So as you can see, I'm not going too hard, too heavy. It really depends on the stamps. Certain stamps are more blunt, and the stamps that I really like to use are the ones that have a real nice sharp edge design on it. So that way it cuts really good into the silver. So now that I got my first stamp, I'm just going to essentially do a repeated stamp design, which is a more traditional Navajo design. So I line it up where I want it. And like I said, that first stamp is crucial to get a nice as you can see, part of it isn't, so I'll go back over that and get on the other side so it leaves a better impression. But like I said, once you get that first one, you can line it back up. For the next one. And as you can see, I'm using a wooden stump underneath my silver plate. And traditionally, the natives use cottonwood. So that's what this is. It's a cottonwood stump. And it's nice because it absorbs the pounding, and it's nice and thick. So another thing I like to do, so I start from the middle of my piece and I work out, but I try and do it evenly because as you see, as you work the silver, it's gonna, form and contort in different ways. So what I try and do is do it equally. And like I said, another thing is the silver, like I said, is being worked. So it's gonna harden after all these pounds. So you can see the silver starting to contort from the pressure it's taken in the middle. And another thing I like to do, which I should have done actually in the beginning, is measure from the end of your bracelet in so you know where to stop. I usually like to go about 1 inch to 1.25 inches, depending on how much I want my design to show. So this one I'll go about 1 inch. So I'll mark right there on either ends. That way I know where my parameters are at. So as you can see, I got about enough room for 2 more, maybe 1 more or 2 more stamps, but I know where to end at. So as you can see, I got to the end of my parameters. And as like I said, the silver is going to contort after all the pounding it's going to take. So now what I'm going to do is kind of pound it back in place. So what I'll do is I'll grab my rawhide mallet. Rawhide mallets are pretty essential because you can form your silver without marring it or scratching it up. If you use like a steel hammer or certain hammers that's harder than the silver, it's gonna mark up the silver. So I'll just take it on my flat surface and just kind of hammer it back into place. I'll get it out from the back, the side. But as you can see, the hammer is really not marking the silver up. It's just reshaping it. So now I got one side done of the bracelet. So what I'll do is, like I said, now since I've been hammering and working the silver molecules are really hard. So what I'll do is I'll take it to my torch here and I'll anneal it. Annealing is warming up the silver to a nice hot, it's loosening up the molecules when you warm the silver back up. So I'll put it in my flux here. And this is to help prevent fire scale and coloration. And what I'm using here is an acetylene torch. Acetylene gets a nice flame. It's not as hot as oxyacetylene. Oxyacetylene is oxygen and acetylene, and it essentially gets a hotter torch. So that's nice for certain techniques, but with this one I'll just be using simple acetylene. So now I'm going to let it cool down a little bit. I got it nice to a nice glow. You can go further, but since I didn't work the silver too much, I don't need a heavy annealing. So now I let it cool off and I'm going to put it in my pickle. Rinse it off. So there, now I got one side done and the silver is nice and soft again. So that's where I'm going to end this video today. I'll finish up the rest, and in the next video I'll show you how to, what we're going to do is we're going to forge the ends, and then we got to do the silver smithing to bend the silver and clean up and polish the silver and patina it as well. So thank you for watching this first video, and I hope you join me next week for the second video.